The woods were a cathedral of silence, the snow-laden pines bowing under the weight of winter. 12-year-old Ethan Cole's boots crunched through the frost, his breath hanging in the air like ghostly punctuation. He hadn't spoken in 6 months, not since the screech of tires and the hollow silence that followed. Now, words felt like shards of glass, sharp, dangerous, best left buried. He paused at the edge of a frozen creek, sketchbook in hand, and traced the crimson flare of a cardinal perched on a birch branch. His father had loved birds. They're proof the world still is color F, he'd say. Ethan's pencil trembled as he shaded the bird's wing, the graphite smudging like a tear. A whimper sliced through the stillness. Ethan turned. A golden retriever stood 10 paces away, its fur matted with snow and soot. One ear was singed to a jagged edge, and a limp dragged its left hind leg. The dog's amber eyes locked onto Ethan's, wide and desperate. "You're hurt," Ethan thought, his chest tightening. He unzipped his thermos, poured steaming broth into the lid, and held it out. The dog inched closer, sniffed, then lapped greedily. Up close, burn scars peeked through its fur, a roadmap of pain. "Storm," Ethan whispered, the first word he'd spoken since the funeral. The dog's tail thumped once. By dusk, the blizzard raged. Ethan led Storm to the garage, bundling him in old horse blankets. His mother, Clara, appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of exhaustion. "We can't keep him," she said, voice frayed. Ethan didn't argue. He curled beside Storm, the dog's warmth seeping into his bones, and sketched by flashlight a cardinal, a scarred ear, a storm. Storm hated closed doors. When Clara shut the garage, he scratched at the wood, whines escalating to howls. Ethan smuggled him inside at midnight, tiptoeing past Clara's bedroom. The retriever collapsed on Ethan's rug, sighing as if he'd found home. At 3 a.m., thunder cracked. Storm bolted upright, trembling. He paced, knocking over a lamp, then shredded Ethan's math textbook. Clara burst in, hair wild. "Enough! He's destroying the house." Ethan crouched, arms around Storm's neck. The dog's heartbeat thundered against his palm. "Shelter, tomorrow," Clara said, softer now. "We're not equipped for this." Ethan pressed his forehead to Storm's. "Stay," he mouthed. The attic smelled of dust and nostalgia. Ethan rummaged through his father's camping gear, fishing rods, a dented compass, a journal filled with half-scribbled plans. Behind a moth-eaten tent, he found a shoebox. Inside was a bucket list on a diner napkin. 1. Hear wolves howl in Yellowstone. Whittle a perfect duck. Teach my kid to fish. Ethan's throat burned. Someday, kiddo, his dad had joked. Adventures wait for no one. A bark echoed below. Storm stood in the backyard, a rusty tackle box clutched in his jaws. Ethan pried it open. Inside lay his father's favorite lure, a silver minnow with one chipped eye. Finished the list, he decided. For him, Mara's clinic buzzed with the chatter of a scarlet macaw. Well, she said, examining Storm's paw. "You're a legend, aren't you?" Ethan frowned. Station 12's hero dog saved 6 kittens from fire. His handler, she paused, didn't make it. Storm vanished after the funeral. The macaw squawked, brave dog, brave dog." Storm licked Ethan's hand, as if apologizing for the ghost he carried. On the drive home, Ethan whispered, "Stay." Clara's grip tightened on the wheel. Whittling was nothing like carving soap. Ethan's duck resembled a malformed potato. Storm watched, tail thumping, as wood chips snowed onto the kitchen floor. Clara stormed in, grocery bags in hand. "Ethan, that's your grandfather's knife." Storm snatched the duck and bolted. At the lake, Ethan cast his father's rod, the line snagging on a log. Storm belly flopped after a frog, surfacing with pond weed on his nose. Ethan laughed, a raw, startled sound. Clara found them soaked. "He's gone tomorrow," she said, voice breaking. Ethan ran, Storm at his heels, into the gathering dark. Rain slashed sideways, turning the woods into a blur of gray and green. Ethan stumbled after Storm, the dog's golden fur a flicker in the downpour. Thunder boomed, and Storm veered off the trail, crashing through brambles with a panicked yelp. "Storm, wait." Ethan's voice toward his throat, raw and unfamiliar. He hadn't spoken this much in months. The dog disappeared into a crevice in the hillside, a narrow cave slick with moss. Ethan crawled in after him, his jeans soaking through. Inside, the air hummed with the scent of wet stone and earth. Storm huddled in the shadows, trembling, his burnt ear pressed flat against his skull. Ethan fumbled for his flashlight. The beam caught Storm's eyes, wild, dilated, and the jagged scars along his flank. He's reliving the fire, Ethan realized. The thought punched through him. We're both trapped in the same storm. He sat cross-legged beside Storm, the dog's warmth seeping into his side. Outside, lightning fractured the sky. My dad taught me to track deer here, Ethan said, his voice a fragile thread. He'd say, listen to the woods, F. It tells stories. But now it's just noise. Storm whined, nosing Ethan's hand. Ethan traced a scar on the dog's shoulder. You tried to save your handler, didn't you? Just like I. His breath hitched. I couldn't save Dad. I yelled at him that morning. Forgot to say anything that mattered. Storm's head snapped up. He lunged to the cave's mouth. Hackles raised and howled. A sound so primal it seemed to shake the roots of the mountains. Ethan froze. The dog's cry wasn't fear. It was fury, grief, a demand to be heard. Another howl tore from Storm's throat, harmonizing with the thunder. Your turn, the dog's eyes seemed to say. Ethan crawled forward, rain stinging his face. He tilted his head back and screamed, I'm sorry. Storm howled again. I miss you. Their voices tangled, raw and dissonant, until Ethan's knees gave out. Storm slumped beside him, panting. The storm softened to a drizzle. We're a mess, Ethan whispered, pressing his forehead to Storm's. But we're not alone, right? Storm licked his cheek. Salt, forgiveness. The fire truck's siren wailed, and Storm erupted into a frenzy of barks, spinning in circles on the driveway. Easy, buddy. Firefighter Lopez laughed, hopping down from the engine. His grin faded as he spotted Storm's scars. No way. Is that our Storm? Ethan nodded, gripping the dog's collar. Lopez crouched, and Storm bounded into his arms, tail whipping like a metronome. We looked everywhere for you after Jack's funeral, Lopez said, ruffling Storm's singed ear. You were his shadow. When the guitar case gathered dust in the corner, its leather cracked like forgotten soil. Clara hadn't touched it since the accident. She'd been a music teacher once, her laughter weaving through scales and arpeggios. Now, silence choked the house. Ethan found her at the kitchen table, staring at the fridge sketch of Storm. Her coffee had gone cold. Flashback. 6 months ago, Clara's hands trembled as she packed away his dad's records. We need to move forward, Ethan. Forward, Ethan hissed. You're erasing him. She'd flinched, then shut his bedroom door. Now, Storm nudged her knee, dropping a mangled tennis ball in her lap. Not now, Clara murmured. Storm barked, insistent. Fine. She tossed the ball half-heartedly. Storm bounded after it, skidding into the guitar case. The latch popped open. Clara froze. Inside lay her husband's Gibson, the one he'd saved for a year to buy her. Storm nosed the strings, producing a discordant twang. Stop, Clara whispered, but Storm pawed at the guitar, his tail wagging. A note rang out, a shaky C chord, then another. Clara's hands hovered, trembling, before settling on the fretboard. The melody was ragged, but it was alive. Ethan stood in the doorway, silent. Storm flopped onto Clara's feet, his head on her toes, as if to say, keep going. Mrs. O'Donnell's roses lay uprooted, their petals trampled into the mud. She marched up the porch, her curlers quivering with rage. That beast dug up my garden again. Clara winced. I'm sorry. We'll fix it. Fix it? He's a menace. Keep him chained, or I'll call animal control. Ethan lurked in the hallway. Storm pressed to his side. The dog's ears flattened. That night, Clara sat Ethan down. We can't do this. I'm barely holding it together. Ethan's hands fisted. You're giving up, like you gave up on Dad. Storm whined, pawing at the back door. No, Ethan said hoarsely. Clara's voice broke. Ethan, please. He bolted outside, Storm at his heels. They climbed the maple tree, its branches cradling them like skeletal arms. Below, Clara called his name, her voice fraying. Storm licked Ethan's cheek. Salt, fear. Dawn painted the sky in bruised purples. Ethan's legs cramped, but he refused to climb down. Storm snoozed in his lap, oblivious. Voices drifted up, called us. Firefighter Lopez said, "Kid's got grit." Mrs. O'Doyle woofed, "That dog's a nuisance." Dr. Mara's parrot squawked, "Hero, hero." Clara's voice, thin but steady, "Ethan, come down, please." He peered through the leaves. Half the town had gathered. Lopez with a thermos of cocoa, Dr. Mara with bandages, even Aiden from school, shuffling awkwardly. Mrs. O'Donnell thrust a zucchini loaf at Clara. "For the dog, but he stays off my begonias." Storm yawned, stretching. His paw knocked a rotten branch loose. It plummeted, smashing Mrs. O'Donnell's loaf. The crowd erupted in laughter. Clara's shoulders shook, not with tears, but laughter. "He's family," she said, meeting Ethan's gaze. "Now get down." Storm leaped first, a golden comet, and Ethan followed, breathless with hope. The obedience class reeked of antiseptic and anxious dogs. Storm sat defiantly in the center of the room, tail thumping as a poodle in a sequin collar aced the stay command. Trainer Brenda tapped her clipboard. "Mr. Cole, your dog needs focus." "See?" Ethan repeated the command, but Storm lunged for a treat bag, knocking over a tower of agility cones. The class erupted in laughter. Brenda sighed. Perhaps a different approach. The different approach turned out to be Maple Grove Nursing Home. Storm bounded through the doors like a comet, skidding to a halt at Mr. Haskins' wheelchair. The stroke survivor's gnarled hand trembled as he held out a tennis ball. Storm dropped it gently into his lap. "Fetch." Mr. Haskins rasped his first word in months. Storm obliged, weaving around walkers and oxygen tanks. Mrs. Lowell, a resident with dementia, giggled as he nuzzled her hand. "My Benny had a dog like you," she murmured, stroking his singed ear. Ethan filmed it all, the wagging tails, the shaky smiles. When Brenda reviewed the footage, her stern facade cracked. Well, maybe obedience isn't the only measure of a good dog. Clara watched the video that night, silent tears streaking her cheeks. Storm slept at her feet, a living, breathing bridge between their broken pieces. Aiden's smirk was a knife in the hallway. "Heard your mut's a dropout." "Figures." Ethan clenched his fists. Storm's tail drooped. At lunch, Aiden accidentally spilled chocolate milk on Ethan's sketchbook. "Oops, your therapy dog can't fix that." Ethan didn't realize Storm was missing until last bell. He found the janitor's closet padlocked, muffled whines seeping through the door. "Let him out." Ethan slammed his fists against the metal. Aiden leaned against a locker, grinning. "Make me." The punch was instinct, a raw burst of anger. Aiden staggered, nose bleeding. "He's just a dog. He's family." Ethan spat, voice cracking. The principal's office was ice cold. Suspended for 3 days, Principal House said. Clara's knuckles whitened on her purse. That night, Aiden's mother called. Ethan overheard Clara's side. "Your son locked a disabled child's service dog in a closet once. Karma's a teacher, Mrs. Carter." Storm slept on Ethan's bed, his warmth a silent apology. The art room smelled of turpentine and possibility. Rivera, the teacher with rainbow-streaked hair, slid Ethan's confiscated sketchbook across the table. "You've got talent, but talent needs discipline." Ethan glanced at his charcoal smudges. Storm mid-leap, Clara's shadowed profile, a cardinal in flight. "It's just stuff, just MS." Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Art's how we survive the unsayable." She handed him a fresh sketch pad. "Draw your Storm, all of it." Ethan stayed after school, sketching until his fingers ached. Storm became his muse. Storm digging up Mrs. O'Donnell's roses. Storm howling at the moon. Storm curled in Clara's lap as she tentatively strummed her guitar. One afternoon, mess. Rivera paused at his latest work. A self-portrait. Ethan and Storm mirrored in each other's eyes. "This," she said softly, "is resilience." Aiden lurked by the door once, sneering, but left when Storm bared his teeth. The dog's growl was a promise. "Try me." The guitar case creaked open, releasing a wave of cedar and memory. Clara traced the fretboard, her calluses long faded. Storm watched, head cocked. "I met your dad at a blues bar," she said abruptly. "He requested Stormy Monday just to talk to me." Ethan froze, sketchbook open. He couldn't play a note. Clara continued, her voice trembling. But he bought me this guitar after our first anniversary. Said, your music's worth 1,000 sunsets. A chord rang out, rusty but true. Storm howled, off-key and joyous. Ethan dug out his harmonica, a gift from his dad. The first notes wobbled, but Clara's laughter steadied them. They stumbled through knocking on heaven's door, Storm harmonizing with enthusiastic yips. Later, Clara whispered, I thought the music died with him. Ethan nodded at Storm, now snoring on the guitar case. He's full of surprises. Firehouse 12 smelled of smoke and stale coffee. Storm raced through the bay, sniffing boots and hydrants. Firefighter Lopez grinned. Missed this goofball. He led Ethan to a memorial wall. Photos of fallen firefighters. Jack's grin leapt out. Storm puppy-sized in his arms. Jack never married, Lopez said. Storm was his kid. That night, the warehouse collapse trapped him. Storm tried dragging him out, but the beam he swallowed. We found him curled by Jack's helmet, burns on his paws. Ethan's throat tightened. He sketched that night. Storm guarding the helmet, stars wheeling overhead. At home, Clara studied the drawing. Heroes come scarred, she murmured, echoing Lopez. Storm nosed Jack's photo, a soft whine in his throat. Ethan hugged him, the dog's heartbeat a steady drum. We'll remember him, he promised silently. Together, the moon hung like a silver coin in the ink-black sky, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted yard. Ethan lay awake, the memory of Firehouse 12 clinging to him like smoke. Storm whined softly, pawing at the bedroom door. Okay, Ethan whispered, slipping into his boots. The cold bit his cheeks as they stepped outside. Storm tilted his head, ears pricked, as if listening to the stars. A faint hum drifted from the porch. Clara sat wrapped in her husband's old flannel, her guitar resting untouched beside her. Her voice wavered, a lullaby Ethan hadn't heard since childhood. Hush now, stormy winds don't blow. Storm trotted to her side, nosing her hand. Clara's breath hitched. Couldn't sleep either, huh? Ethan hesitated, then sat beside her. The silence stretched, taut as a guitar string, until Storm threw back his head and howled. A sound so raw it seemed to crack the night open. Clara laughed, startled. What's gotten into him? He does this sometimes, Ethan said, like he's talking to the moon. Storm nudged Clara's knee, insistent. All right. She stood, her voice trembling. But I'm rusty. The first note was shaky, but the second found its footing. Clara sang louder, her voice blending with Storm's howls. Ethan joined in, his off-key hum a bridge between them. Flashback, a younger Ethan, trembling under blankets as thunder shook the house. His dad knelt beside him, strumming a ukulele. Storms ain't monsters, kiddo. They're just the world singing off-key. Now, under the same sky, Ethan's howl rose, a primal release. Clara's tears glinted in the moonlight, but her smile held. Storm leaned into them, his warmth a tether. When the last echo faded, Clara whispered, he'd have loved this. Ethan nodded. For the first time, the silence felt like a beginning, not an end. The county fair buzzed with laughter and the tang of cotton candy. Ethan clutched his whittled duck, its lopsided wings sanded smooth. Storm strained against his leash, nostrils flaring at the popcorn stands. Category 12, Woodcraft, the judge announced. A boy in a scout uniform placed a polished eagle on the table. Ethan's duck looked like a sick pelican. Interesting interpretation, the judge muttered, jotting notes. Aiden snickered from the crowd. Looks like roadkill. Storm growled, low and steady. Ethan's face burned. He retreated to the picnic tables, duck abandoned. Storm whined, nosing his pocket for treats. A shriek cut through the noise. That dog's got the duck. It done spawn. Storm bolted past the Ferris wheel. The duck clamped in his jaws, kids chasing him. The crowd erupted. Phones out, cheers rising as Storm zigzagged through tents, a fuzzy golden blur. Storm, drop it. Ethan yelled, Herdlingaibale. The dog skidded to a halt at the petting zoo. Duck raised triumphantly. A goat snatched it, sparking a chaotic game of keep away. By the time Ethan wrestled the duck free, it was chewed, slobbered, and missing a wing. Disqualified, the judge said, lips twitching. But the video was already trending. Hashtag Duck Bandit. That night, Clara scrolled through comments. Look, best thing at the fair. Storm for mayor. Ethan studied the mangled duck. Dad would have hated it. He'd have displayed it proudly, Clara said. Perfectly imperfect. Like us. Storm snoozed, the duck tucked under his paw. Mrs. O'Donnell's knock was hesitant. For the dog, she muttered, thrusting a lumpy sweater at Clara. Knitted it for Mr. Whiskers' fur. Hypoallergenic. Storm sniffed the sweater, tail wagging. Mr. Whiskers? Ethan asked. My cat, missing since Tuesday. Her voice cracked. He's all I've got since Harold passed. Storm pawed the door, whining. He's on the scent. Ethan said. Mrs. O'Donnell scoffed. That meant a gardener, not a bloodhound. But Storm led them to the old oak, or Mr. Whiskers yowled from the highest branch. I'll call the fire department, Clara said. No time. Mrs. O'Donnell grabbed Ethan's shoulder. He's slipping. Ethan scrambled up, Storm barking directions below. The branch creaked, but he inched forward, heart pounding. Gotcha. He tucked the squirming cat into his jacket. Descending, he slipped. Strong hands caught him. Firefighter Lopez grinning. Per the hashtag, Duck Bandit needed backup. Mrs. O'Donnell cradled Mr. Whiskers, tears in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered to Storm. The next morning, her garden sported a new sign. Hero Dog Zone. Roses can wait. Storm paraded in his fur sweater. The duck, now wingless, tucked in his collar. Ethan smiled, imperfect but whole. The school auditorium hummed with nervous energy. Students shuffling in their seats as Mrs. Ruiz adjusted the projector. Ethan clutched his thumb drive. Storm's panting a steady rhythm at his feet. The screen flickered to life, revealing the title, Storm, the dog who remade us. The video opened with Storm trotting through Maple Grove Nursing Home. Mr. Haskins' trembling hands tossing a tennis ball. Laughter erupted as Storm skidded into a wall. Then silence fell as Mr. Haskins rasped, good dog. Next, Firefighter Lopez's voiceover. Heroes ain't always the ones without scars. Ethan's palms slickened. The camera cut to Storm in the maple tree. Clara's tear-streaked face below. Then, the howling night. Ethan and Storm's voices tangled with the wind. The screen faded to black. The room held its breath. Aiden stood, his chair screeching. Ethan braced for a sneer, but Aiden's voice cracked. My sister's in a wheelchair. She watched your video. Smiled for the first time in weeks. He thrust a crumpled drawing at Ethan. A stick figure Storm with a cape. She asked me to give you this. Mrs. Ruiz wiped her eyes. First place goes to Ethan Cole. Storm barked, tail whacking the podium. The applause was thunder. Afterward, Aiden lingered. I was jealous. My dad left, and he kicked a pebble. You had a dog who stayed. Ethan handed him the thumb drive. Show your sister the outtakes. Storm eating a zucchini loaf. Aiden's laugh was shaky. Thanks. Clara waited outside, her guitar case slung over her shoulder. Your dad would have loved that. Ethan nodded. So do I. Storm's limp worsened. He hesitated before jumping into the truck, a whine escaping as he landed. Mara's clinic felt colder this time, the parrot silent. Hip dysplasia, DR, Mara said, x-rays glowing. His joints are deteriorating. Pain meds rest, but what? Clara's voice trembled. He'll slow down. Mine needs surgery. Ethan's sketchbook slipped. Not him too. That night, Storm struggled onto Ethan's bed. Ethan traced the dog's muzzle. You can't leave. Not yet. Flashback. Ethan's dad teaching him to skateboard. Bend your knees, kiddo. Balance is trust in motion. Now, Ethan whispered, I don't know how to balance without you. Storm licked his cheek. Salt. Fear. The community center buzzed with crockpots and quilts. Ethan's sketches lined the walls. Storm howling, Clara's guitar, a cardinal taking flight. Mrs. O'Donnell bought the maple tree standoff. For Mr. Whiskers' hero, Aiden's sister wheeled forward, pointing at Storm's superhero portrait. That one. Firefighter Lopez dropped a wad of bills. Station 12's donation. Storm's earned his adventure. By noon, they'd raised $2,000. Clara strummed her guitar, voice clear, and I'll follow you into the storm. Ethan joined in, harmonica warbling. Storm thumped his tail, a metronome of hope. As the crowd clapped, Ethan glimpsed his dad's cardinal in the window. We're ready, he thought. Storm knows the Yellowstone map, a low, determined growl in his throat. The truck's engine hummed like a tired lullaby as Ethan buckled Storm into the back seat, nestling him between a stack of camping gear and Claire's guitar case. The dog's tail thumped rhythmically against the seat, his eyes bright despite the faint hitch in his breath when he shifted. "Got the map?" Clara asked, adjusting the rearview mirror. Her fingers lingered on the small cardinal charm dangling from it, a gift from Ethan's dad years ago. Ethan held up his phone. "GPS says 27 hours. Your dad hated GPS," she said softly, pulling onto the highway. "Always said maps were like stories. You gotta unfold them to see the whole picture." The first hour passed in quiet anticipation. Storm pressed his nose to the window, fogging the glass as the Vermont pines blurred into a green streak. Ethan sketched the dog's profile, the lines shaky from the truck's vibrations. Flashback, his dad sprawled on the living room floor, a road atlas spread like a treasure map. "See this squiggle, F? That's the Mississippi, wider than 1,000 trucks." "Now," Clara cleared her throat, "let's play a game. License plates. Find all 50 states." Ethan groaned. "That's kid stuff. Indulge me." She nodded at a passing semi. "Georgia, your turn." He spotted a faded plate. "Texas and Wyoming." "Cheater," Clara laughed, the sound lighter than Ethan had heard in months. Storm barked at a windmill, his ears pricked. Clara reached back to ruffle his fur. He's never seen planes before. By Nebraska, Storm's panting grew labored. Ethan fed him iced chips from a gas station cup. "Easy boy, we'll stop soon." At a rest area, they unfolded camp chairs under a gnarled oak. Clara strummed her guitar, the chords merging with the cicada's drone. Storm flopped in the shade, gnawing a bacon-flavored chew. "Your dad proposed here," Clara said suddenly, nodding at the oak. Ethan nearly dropped his sketchbook. "What?" "We were road tripping to Colorado." He hid the ring in a granola bar wrapper. Her smile wavered. "I almost choked on it." Ethan snorted, then hesitated. Was he scared to get married? Clara plucked a minor chord. "Terrified." Said love felt like skydiving, thrilling, but you gotta trust the parachute. She met Ethan's gaze. "He'd be proud of you. You know that, right?" Ethan's throat tightened. Storm limped over, dropping the chew in his lap. A peace offering. Back on the road, dusk painted the sky in watercolor streaks. Clara hummed riders on the storm, her voice blending with the tire's steady whir. Ethan drifted off, his head against the window, until Storm's whine jolted him awake. "He needs to stretch," Clara said, pulling over at a deserted lookout. The prairie stretched endlessly, grasses whispering secrets to the wind. Storm hobbled a few paces, then flopped down, snuffling at a cactus flower. Ethan sat beside him, the earth still warm from the day's heat. "Look," Clara pointed, a lone cardinal perched on a fence post, its crimson feathers glowing in the twilight. Ethan's breath caught. "Dad," Storm howled, not the raw, grieving cry of the cave, but a soft, melodic note. The cardinal trilled back before vanishing into the indigo horizon. Clara squeezed Ethan's shoulder. "He's with us." They drove deeper into the night, Storm's head in Ethan's lap, the stars sharpening overhead. Somewhere in Wyoming, Ethan whispered, "Tell me another dad story." Clara's voice unfurled like the road ahead. Stories of misadventures, burnt campfires, and a man who believed in second chances. Outside, the world felt vast and tender, a tapestry of shadows and light. As dawn tinged the sky peach, the first snow-capped peaks of Yellowstone emerged. Storm stood, wagging weakly, as if he sensed the wolves waiting in the wild. Ethan pressed a hand to the window. "We made it, Dad." Somewhere, a howl answered, or maybe it was the wind. Yellowstone's dawn broke in hues of amber and violet, the air crisp with the scent of pine and distant snow. Ethan zipped his jacket against the chill, watching Storm limp toward the wolf sanctuary's observation deck. The dog's breath fogged in the cold, his ears twitching at the chorus of howls that echoed through the valley. "They're just up ahead," Clara said, adjusting her gloves. A park ranger had directed them to a secluded overlook where a small pack of gray wolves roamed, their rehabilitation enclosure blending into the wild terrain. Storm paused, nostrils flaring, as if sensing the primal call in his bones. The first wolf appeared like a shadow, a sleek, silver-coated alpha with piercing gold eyes. It padded to the fence, head high, studying Storm. Ethan's pulse quickened. Storm lowered his muzzle, a soft whine escaping him. But the wolf answered with a low, resonant howl that vibrated in Ethan's chest. Flashback, his dad's voice, rough with wonder. Wolves aren't just animals, F. They're stories, survivors. Now, Storm's howl rose, tentative at first, then stronger, harmonizing with the alpha's cry. The pack joined in, their voices weaving a haunting tapestry of sound. Clara gripped Ethan's arm, tears glinting. He's talking to them. Ethan's sketchbook fell open to a half-finished drawing of his dad. The guilt he'd carried, sharp, relentless, suddenly felt too heavy. He stepped closer to the fence, Storm leaning against his leg. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered, the words carried away by the wind. "I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye, that I was mad, His voice broke. "I forgive you for leaving." The alpha wolf tipped its head, silent. Storm nudged Ethan's hand, warm and steady. Clara knelt beside him, her mittens brushing the sketch. He knew, Ethan. Love doesn't need perfect words. A distant howl echoed, wild, untamed, and Storm answered, his voice raw but unbroken. Ethan imagined his dad somewhere in the vastness, howling back. By noon, Storm's limp had worsened, his breath shallow. Clara spread a blanket near a thermal spring, its steam curling into the sky. "Rest here," she urged. "We'll find a vet in town." But Storm pawed at Ethan's backpack, dragging out the battered duck. He dropped it at Clara's feet, tail wagging. "Still a troublemaker," she laughed. But her smile faltered as Storm settled heavily, his head on the duck. Ethan sketched the scene. The wolves on the ridge, the steam rising, Storm's golden fur haloed by sunlight. Clara hummed Stormy Monday, her guitar case propped against a pine. As dusk painted the sky, the alpha wolf reappeared, a rabbit carcass in its jaws. It dropped the offering at the fence line, eyes locked on Storm. "He respects you," Clara murmured, a warrior recognizing another. Storm struggled to stand, but Ethan held him close. The campfire hissed and spat, its flames gnawing at the damp logs Ethan had scavenged from the forest floor. Storm lay curled beside him, the dog's breathing shallow but steady, his muzzle resting on the mangled duck. Clara stared into the fire, her guitar silent in its case, her face flickering between shadow and light. "You blame me, don't you?" she said suddenly, her voice raw. Ethan froze, a marshmallow skewered on his stick charring to ash. "What?" "For your dad." Clara's hands trembled as she fed another log to the fire. "For not seeing it coming, for moving his things." The words hung in the cold air, sharp as the pine needles crunching underfoot. Storm lifted his head, sensing the shift. Flashback. Clara at the hospital, her hands clutching Ethan's shoulders. "He's gone," she'd said, her voice a numb monotone. Ethan had screamed, "You're lying," and fled to the woods. The first day of his silence. Now the fire crackled, a brittle soundtrack to the truth clawing its way out. "I asked him to pick up milk," Clara whispered. "That night, he was tired, but I insisted. We're out," I said. Ethan's stomach dropped. The marshmallow stick snapped in his grip. If I hadn't nagged him, he'd have stayed home. "The deer, the accident," her voice fractured. "It's my fault." Storm whined, nosing her knee. Clara flinched. Ethan's mind reeled. All this time, her distance, her hollow eyes, wasn't just grief. It was guilt, festering in the dark. "You think I don't know?" Ethan's voice rose, trembling. "That I didn't wonder? Why didn't she stop him? Why'd she let him go?" Clara recoiled, as if struck. "But it's not your fault." The words exploded from him, fierce and fractured. "Dad chose to go. He chose to swerve. He chose us every day." Storm stood, wobbling, and shoved his weight between them. His tail thumped once a plea. Clara's tears fell silently. "I couldn't protect him. Or you. I just froze." Ethan thought of the attic, the bucket list, the way she'd erased his dad's presence like chalk on a board. "You didn't freeze. You hid." The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling into the star-streaked sky. Somewhere, a wolf howled, a mournful, ancient sound. Clara unzipped the guitar case, her fingers brushing the strings. After the accident, I'd sit in his truck, smell his coffee mug, pretend he'd walk in any minute. She plucked a single note, dissonant and lonely. But the longer I waited, the more it felt like he never existed. Ethan dug his nails into his palms. So you threw him away? No. She met his gaze, her eyes blazing. I tried to survive. For you. Storm whined again, pressing his head into Clara's lap. She buried her fingers in his fur, her shoulders shaking. I'm sorry, she choked, for making you carry this alone. Ethan's anger crumbled. He saw it now. The night she'd stayed up, staring at bills. The way she'd flinch at riders on the storm on the radio. The guitar, silence for months. He scooted closer, their shoulders brushing. Storm sighed, settling across their laps. Dad used to say storms aren't monsters. Ethan murmured, just the world singing off-key. Clara's laugh was watery. He'd say that to me too, when I'd panic before gigs. She strummed a chord, then another, until a melody emerged, rough but alive. Ethan pulled out his harmonica, the notes weaving with hers. Storm's tail thumped weakly in rhythm. Above them, the northern lights shimmered to life. Ribbons of green and violet dancing across the sky. Ethan's breath caught. Dad, Clara followed his gaze. He's here, she whispered. In the music, the howls. Storm lifted his muzzle and howled, a raspy, joyous sound. Ethan and Clara joined him, their voices rising, not in grief, but in defiance. In love. When the last echo faded, Clara squeezed Ethan's hand. We'll finish the list. All of it. Storm nudged the duck toward the firelight, its lone wing casting a crooked shadow. Ethan picked it up, tracing the teeth marks. Even the whittling. Clara grinned, tear-streaked, especially the whittling. They sat until the fire died, the aurora borealis painting their faces in otherworldly light. Storm slept deeply, his paws twitching as if chasing dreams of endless fields. As Ethan zipped the tent shut, Clara whispered, I'll never stop missing him. Me neither, Ethan said. But we're not broken, just remade. Outside, the wolves sang on. The fluorescent lights of the veterinary hospital buzzed like trapped flies. Storm lay on a stainless steel table, his golden fur matted with soot and saline, and drip snaking into his foreleg. Bandages swaddled his paws, the scent of antiseptic clinging to him. Ethan pressed his palm to the glass partition, his breath fogging the cold surface. Third-degree burns on his pads. Dr. Mara had said, her parrot unusually silent on her shoulder. Lung damage from smoke inhalation. We're stabilizing him, but prepare yourselves. Clara slumped in a plastic chair, her guitar case leaning against the wall. She hadn't touched it since the wildfire. This is my fault, she muttered. We shouldn't have gone to Yellowstone. Ethan didn't answer. His throat felt lined with ash. Flashback. Storm as a puppy, tumbling through autumn leaves in the firehouse yard. Jack's laughter. Look at him go. Born to run. Now, Storm's chest rose and fell in shallow hitches, each breath a raspy battle. A nurse ushered them into the ICU. 5 minutes, she said. Ethan knelt beside the table. Storm's tail twitched, a ghost of a wag. Hey, hero, Ethan whispered, stroking the less burnt patch behind the dog's ear. You've got to stay. Who's going to terrorize Mrs. O'Donnell's begonias? Clara placed the mangled duck beside Storm's muzzle. The dog nuzzled it weakly, his amber eyes glazed with painkillers. Remember the maple tree? Clara said, her voice fraying. You refused to come down until I promised. Well, I'm promising again. Stay. Storm's eyelids fluttered. That night, they slept in the waiting room, Ethan's head on Clara's shoulder. He dreamed of wolves circling the truck, their howls sharp as sirens. At dawn, Dr. Mara woke them. He's critical. We need to operate. Remove damaged tissue, assess the lungs. Clara signed the forms, her signature a shaky scrawl. The hours dripped by. Ethan sketched Storm's portrait over and over. Storm diving into the lake, Storm howling with wolves, Storm as a cartoon superhero. Clara hummed riders on the storm, her fingers tapping the guitar case like a talisman. Aiden texted, Sis made you this. A photo followed, a crayon drawing of Storm in a cape, flying over flames. She says he's invincible. Ethan showed Clara. Maybe he is. When Mara finally emerged, her face gave nothing away. He made it, barely. Ethan's knees buckled. Clara caught him, her grip iron. Storm lay in recovery, his body a patchwork of bandages and monitors. Clara pressed her lips to his singed ear. Welcome back, troublemaker. Ethan unfolded his dad's bucket list, the napkin brittle with age. He crossed out "Here the wolves howl in Yellowstone" and wrote "Survive the storm." The cardinal watched from the windowsill, its red feathers bright against the sterile white. The gallery walls glowed under soft track lighting. Ethan's sketches of storm pinned like fragments of a healing heart. A crowd milled through the space. Firefighters in pressed uniforms, nursing home residents in wheelchairs, Aiden's sister clutching her crayon drawing. At the center of the room, under a spotlight, sat the mangled duck, its chewed wing propped upright with wire. A plaque read, "Imperfectly perfect, the Storm Coal Collection." Storm lay on a plaid dog bed nearby, his bandaged paws tucked beneath him. A therapy dog vest draped his shoulders, the fabric brushing his scars. Kids knelt to pet him, their whispers reverent. "That's the hero dog." Ethan hovered by the entrance, adjusting his too-tight collared shirt. Clara nudged him. "Breathe. They're here for you." Mr. Haskins wheeled over, his speech still halting but fierce. "YUG good." He pointed to the sketch of Storm howling in the cave. "Thanks," Ethan mumbled, cheeks burning. Aiden slouched in, hands jammed in his pockets. "Sis made me come." He nodded at the duck. "Still ugly. Still here." Ethan shot back, but grinned when Aiden's sister barreled into Storm, giggling as he licked her face. Clara took the stage, her guitar slung low. "This one's for the storm chasers," she said, and launched into Riders on the Storm, her voice smoky and sure. Ethan joined in on harmonica, the notes threading through the room like wildfire smoke, harsh but beautiful. Storm stood, wobbly, and limped to Ethan's side. The crowd parted, phones raised. "He supposed arrest, Dr." Mara hissed, but firefighter Lopez laughed. "Let him shine." Ethan knelt, pressing his forehead to Storm's. "Show off." The dog's tail thumped. "Damn right." Later, as the crowd thinned, Clara handed Ethan an envelope. From the gallery, they sold every sketch. He stared at the amount. $3,000. For Storm surgery? For Yellowstone, she said. "We're finishing the list. All of it." Outside, the cardinal watched from a birch tree, its song sharp and sweet. Storm tipped his muzzle, howling softly, not in pain but promise. The auditorium buzzed with the rustle of gowns and the scent of wilting carnations. Ethan stood backstage, his palms slick against the crumpled speech in his hands. Storm sat at his feet, bandages replaced by a sleek black brace on his hind leg, his therapy dog vest gleaming under the stage lights. "You're sure he's allowed up there?" Principal Howe whispered, eyeing Storm. Clara adjusted Ethan's tie, her hand steady. "That dog's earned more diplomas than any of us." Ethan's throat tightened. "Grief isn't something you fix," Ethan continued. "It's something you carry, and sometimes you find others to help you hold it." Clara wiped her eyes. Firefighter Lopez saluted. Storm circled Ethan's legs, then flopped dramatically at his feet, paws splayed. The audience laughed. "This goofball taught me heroes aren't fearless." Ethan grinned. "They're the ones who tremble, but step forward anyway." Aiden's sister shouted, "Storm's a superhero." The crowd erupted in applause. Storm stood, tail wagging, and bowed, a trick Clara had taught him. Even Principal Howe clapped. Outside, dusk painted the sky. Ethan loosened his gown as Clara hugged him. He'd be so proud. Storm nudged the bucket list in Ethan's pocket. "Tomorrow," Ethan promised. "Yellowstone." A cardinal trilled from a nearby oak. Storm howled once, soft, triumphant, as the first stars blinked awake. The dawn air in Yellowstone was sharp with the scent of pine and distant frost. Ethan zipped his jacket against the chill, watching Storm sniff the dew-laden grass outside their tent. The dog's black brace gleamed under the rising sun, his gait slower but steady. Clara knelt by the campfire, coaxing flames to life with kindling and her quiet hum of Stormy Monday. "Ready?" she asked, nodding at the trailhead where a park ranger had marked wolf territory. Ethan patted his pocket, the bucket list napkin, now soft with wear. Let's finish this. Storm led the way, his nose tracing invisible paths as they hiked into the Lamar Valley. The wilderness unfolded in sweeping gold and green, shadows stretching like long-held secrets. Ethan's boots crunched over gravel, his breath visible in the cold. Flashback, his dad's voice crackling over a campfire recording. Wolves howl to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." Now, Ethan's pulse quickened as they reached the overlook. Storm paused, ears pricked, his amber eyes scanning the horizon. What if they don't come? Clara whispered, "They will." Ethan said, though doubt gnawed at him. They waited. Hours bled into the quiet. The rustle of aspens, the distant cry of a hawk. Storm settled at Ethan's feet, his chin resting on the mangled duck. Then, a single howl pierced the stillness. Storm lurched upright, trembling. Across the valley, a gray wolf emerged, its muzzle tipped to the sky. Another joined, their voices weaving a primal hymn. Ethan's eyes burned. Storm's howl rose, raw, resonant, a bridge between wild and tame. Clara gripped Ethan's hand as the pack's chorus swelled. "He's here," she murmured. The cardinal perched on a nearby branch, its crimson feathers stark against the gray rock. Ethan's throat tightened. "Thanks, Dad." Storm's legs wobbled, but he held the note, his howl a ragged anthem of survival. When the wolves fell silent, the valley hummed with absence. Storm collapsed, panting, but his tail thumped once. Worth it. Ethan crossed off the final item. Hear the wolves howl in Yellowstone. Clara strummed her guitar, the melody tender as a lullaby. What's next? Ethan knelt beside Storm, the duck cradled in his palms. We go home. The dog nuzzled his hand, warmth seeping through the scars. Sunlight pooled over the Vermont hillside, gilding the wildflowers and tall grass in hues of amber and honey. Storm bounded ahead, his brace discarded for the day, his gait unsteady but joyous. Ethan trailed behind, the bucket list napkin fluttering in his hand. Every item now crossed off except one. Teach my kid to fish. Clara waited by the lake, her father's fishing rod propped against a tree. She held up a rusty tackle box. "Last lesson," she said, her voice steady but soft. Ethan knelt beside Storm, who flopped into the shade, tongue lolling. "Dad tried teaching me a dozen times. I always hated it." Clara baited the hook with a worm, her fingers trembling only slightly. He hated it too, preferred skipping stones. She cast the line, the lure arcing silver over the water. But he said fishing wasn't about catching anything. It was about waiting together. The lake rippled, dragonflies skimming the surface. Storm snored softly, his paws twitching in dreams of endless fields. Ethan took the rod. The weight felt foreign, but Clara's hand on his shoulder anchored him. "Now breathe," she said, "and listen." Flashback, his dad's calloused hands guiding his grip. "Patience, kiddo. The fish will come when they're ready." Now the line tugged. Ethan jerked the rod, reeling in a sunfish no bigger than his palm. Storm woke, barking at the flapping intruder. Clara laughed, bright, unburdened. A Cole family record. Ethan freed the fish, watching it dart away. "Think Dad's laughing at us?" "Absolutely." She tossed a pebble, the skip count reaching 6 before it sank. Storm limped to the water's edge, lapping at the shallows. Ethan joined him, the late afternoon sun warm on his back. "We did it," he whispered. "All of it." The dog leaned into him, his muzzle grayed but his eyes still bright. At dusk, they visited the grave. Ethan placed the whittled duck beside the headstone, its chipped wing angled toward the sky. Clara strummed Stormy Monday, the notes blending with the rustle of leaves. Storm sat sentinel, his gaze fixed on the cardinal preening in the birch tree. When the song ended, he howled, soft, sustained, a lullaby for the setting sun. Ethan traced his father's name in the stone. "We're okay," he said, "thanks to you." And him. Clara's tears fell freely, but her smile held. He'd hate that duck. He'd love that duck. As twilight deepened, Storm led them home, his pace slow but sure. The field glowed, fireflies winking like earthbound stars. The field stretched endlessly under a sky bruised with twilight. Wildflowers bowing in the breeze like old friends saying goodbye. Storm lay in the grass, his muzzle silvered, his breathing a slow, rhythmic whisper. Ethan knelt beside him, the last of the sunlight gilding the dog's scars into constellations. "Remember the maple tree?" Clara said, settling next to them with her guitar. Storm's tail thumped once, scattering dandelion seeds into the air. Ethan smiled. "You wouldn't come down until you promised." And I kept that promise. Clara strummed a chord, the notes trembling like the first drops of rain. Every day, Storm lifted his head, sniffing at the breeze. The cardinal watched from the fence post, its song a thread weaving through the melody. Ethan traced the dog's ear, the singed edge, the map of their journey. "Hey," he whispered, "you can rest now." Storm sighed, a sound softer than falling petals, and laid his head in Ethan's lap. Clara's song swelled, Riders on the Storm, but reshaped. No longer a dirge, but a lullaby. Flashback. Storm as a puppy, barreling into Ethan's life with singed fur and stubborn joy. A boy who couldn't speak, a mother who couldn't grieve, a dog who refused to let them drown. Now, the stars blinked awake. Storm's breaths grew shallow, his paws twitching as if chasing dreams of wolves and wildfires and endless fields. "Thank you," Clara murmured, her tears falling into his fur, "for bringing us back." Ethan pressed his forehead to Storm's. "Tell Dad, tell him we're okay." The dog's tail flickered, a final wag, before stilling. The cardinal took flight, a red streak against the indigo sky. Epilogue: the golden retriever statue in the town square bore a plaque. Storm Cole, hero, friend, family. Children climbed on it, their laughter echoing through the maple trees. Ethan's art studio buzzed with sketches of cardinals and wolves. Aiden's sister's crayon drawing hung framed beside the door. Clara taught music at the nursing home, her guitar case plastered with stickers. And in the field where wildflowers swayed, a new puppy, a golden blur with one singed ear, raced toward Ethan, a mangled duck clutched in his jaws. Sommière, à Cardinal Son.
Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.